All right, my friends, welcome to video lesson number 7. In this lesson, we're going to be doing some still image manipulation. A couple different things we're going to be doing. We're going to be moving still images on screen to add interest and cover some cut points in our initial soundbite in the interview project here with Ed Choi. So you can see we have a couple jump cuts here in this soundbite. Let's play through and check them out.
Is a natural method which we use needles, which does not contain any chemicals, and we use the needles to
Okay, so what he says makes sense, and it's smooth and fluid, and it works, but the visual doesn't because we see jump cuts. So what we want to do is cover those, and we're going to use still images to do that. So let's head over to our graphics bin here, and the first thing he's talking about is what acupuncture is. So I'm going to grab the acupuncture definition here and use that to cover the first jump cut. So let's play through again and check for timing.
a natural method which we use needles.
Okay, so I'm going to have the definition come up right after he starts talking about what it is. I want to show him on screen for a short period of time and then go to the still image of the definition. So I'm going to check for timing here.
Simply, acupuncture is a
Okay, so I think I'm going to cut right around there. And then go right to the definition. So I'm going to mark my in there. I'm going to patch V1 to V2. And right when he starts talking about the fact that they use needles, I think I'll leave the first graphic and go to another one where I actually show needles.
we use needles.
Okay, right there. Mark my out. Maybe a little more on that. All right, so I'm going to remove the out that I have on the graphic up here, edit this down, the period key, and there it is. Right over that jump cut point. Let's check it out. Whoops, doesn't cover the screen. Well, we'll have to solve this problem. Okay, so I like the graphic that I have, but it has to be manipulated in a few different ways to make it interesting and really functional. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the graphic here, head up to the effect controls, and scale it up so that it at least covers the screen. There we go. Okay, so now we don't see the jump cut anymore. Let's play through here, check the timing.
Is a natural method which we use needles.
Okay, I like that. Zoom in a little bit. I think I'm going to stretch the beginning here just a little bit.
Acupuncture is a natural method which
Right when he says natural, we'll cut to that. Okay, so yes, we're covering the screen and we don't see the jump cut anymore, but this still image in and of itself is kind of boring. So let's add some interest. The first thing I'm going to do is add some movement. So I'm going to move my playhead to the very beginning of the still, and I'm going to place a scale keyframe there. Using the stopwatch here, I placed my keyframe. You can see it poking its nose out right there. And then I'm also going to place one for position because I'm going to have this still grow on screen to indicate sort of a camera push movement. And I want it to come toward the viewer and also move over to the right a little bit to keep the word acupuncture the center of attention. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go to the end of the still, hitting the down arrow again, one frame back. I'm at the very end of the still, you can see. And I'm going to scale it up just slightly by clicking, holding, and dragging over to the right in the scale area here. And I'm going to go to maybe, I don't know, like 325 or so. And then I'm also going to click on the motion box here and move the still over to the right just slightly so that acupuncture is still the center of attention. Okay, so let's check that movement.
Acupuncture is a natural method which we use needles, which
That looks nice, but I think there's a little bit more I can do here. By using an old school trick with Gaussian blur. So I'm going to head over to the Effects tab here. And in the search area, I'm going to type GAU and go down to the Gaussian blur effect here. Grab it, throw it onto the clip. And you can see just by doing that, nothing really happens. I have to manipulate the Gaussian blur controls first. So you can see Gaussian blur is down here on the list of controllable items for this graphic. And I want to head down to blurriness here and adjust that. So I'm going to make it about, I don't know, 25 or so, maybe 30. Let's try 30. I'm going to hit a keyframe on the stopwatch here, and I'm going to move the playhead, I don't know, maybe 20 frames or so, and reduce the blurriness to 0. Clicking in, typing 0, enter, and now I'm going to play through that and see what type of effect that creates.
Launcher is a natural method.
Cool. Looks like a camera focus pull. Really neat. Adds some interest to the image. You can see at the very beginning here though, where it's at its maximum blurriness, there's a little bit of the screen at the very edge that's permitting the background to pass through. See this bright area right here? That's actually the background here passing through. So to deal with that, I'm going to go to the Gaussian blur controls and click the repeat edge pixels box, and you'll see the background will disappear. Nice. Okay, so make sure you do that to prevent that background from passing through. Okay, great. So now what I want to do is continue construction here. So the next thing he's talking about is needles.
Needles, which does not contain any chemicals, and we use the needles to reduce.
And there's another jump cut to cover. Okay, so what I'm going to do is place an in here and maybe make this just over 4 seconds or so.
We use the needles to reduce pain.
Okay, so let's grab some needles. Shift 1 to head back to our project panel. I'm going to go down to AccuNeedles here. And I'm going to edit them in right after our definition. Again, hitting the period key to overwrite. And there they are. Again, not large enough to cover the screen. So again, I will select them, go to Effect Controls, head up to Scale, click, hold, and drag over to the right, and ensure that they cover the screen. That's good. So now I think what I'm going to do is do a lateral move. And I'm going to move these needles so that we reveal the points. So again, I'll go to the beginning of the clip. And I've already got them scaled to where I want them to be. I don't need to make them any bigger. I just want to move them across the screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is place a position keyframe, go to the motion box here, and drag these over to the right a little bit. And then I think what we're going to do is, over the duration of the clip, move the graphic this way so that this needle point here becomes more a point of focus. So we'll start out here, and then we'll go to the end of the clip again. 1 frame back. And move this over, being careful not to let the edge come up and show the background. And you want to do something subtle with this. You don't want to move it all that much because the clip is only 4 seconds long and you don't want it to race across the screen. So let's check that movement now.
Needles, which does not contain any chemicals, and we use the
Pretty good. I think I'm going to have it move just a little bit more. So I'm going to use the keyframe navigator here to go to my end keyframe. There it is. You can see I'm on that keyframe because this keyframe indicator is highlighted blue. And I'm going to move it over just a little bit more. All right, let's try that again.
needles, which does not contain any chemicals, and we use the needles to reduce pain.
Good, I like that a lot. Okay, so now we've covered both our jump cuts, and I want to have one more graphic in here that actually shows the needles in use on one of his patients. So I'm going to go here to the end of that graphic, mark it in, and I'm going to determine where I want the out to be based on what Ed is saying. So let's give a listen.
Pain, increase blood circulation, and improve your immune system to make
Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is have the next graphic leave the screen when he says, make you feel better overall.
you feel better overall.
Place focus on him saying that and this little smile he kind of gives. All right, so I'll mark my out there. About 6 seconds. You can see right here. So the graphic I'm going to use for that is this acupuncture needles close-up right here. So again, I'm going to remove the out on this and edit it down with the period key. And there it is. Doesn't quite cover the screen, but it's a lot bigger than the other graphics we had. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is use another sort of old school trick, and I'm going to use this graphic itself as a background to move this graphic on top of. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is double this graphic so that I can have 2 layers of it in the timeline. So I'm going to hold down Option, click, drag up, release, and then let go of Option. And you can see I've got 2 layers now of the exact same thing. I'm going to take the bottom layer with that selected, head over to the effect controls, and scale it up so that it becomes large enough to be a background. The next thing I'm going to do is go to the effects panel and again grab our good friend Gaussian blur, drag that on to the bottom layer, click repeat edge pixels, and increase the blurriness to something like, I don't know, around 50. Now you can see I've got a blurry background that is actually thematically consistent with my foreground element. We have the same colors, same shapes, but blurred. So now I'm going to take the foreground element and scale it down. And I think what I'm going to do is simulate a camera pull and have this graphic shrink a bit on screen and sort of fly away from the viewer. So I'm going to go to the beginning of the clip, mark my first keyframe, and then go to the end of the clip, 1 frame back, and reduce the size of the graphic so that it appears to fly away from us. So I'm clicking, holding, and dragging over to the left. And again, subtle movement is key. Not a whole lot going on here, all right? So I'm reducing it down to 66, 73 to 66. Let's try that.
To reduce pain, increase blood circulation, and improve your immune system to make you feel better overall.
Looks nice. I like that. Okay, so now what I want to do is have a nice transition into this. But you can see, I can't just put a cross dissolve right here. If I do, I have a problem because I don't have one up here.
The needles to reduce pain.
And that looks really weird, okay? So I'm going to get rid of that. And what I'm going to do is actually combine both of these clips, these layers here, into one item that I can affect as one thing. And I'm going to do that using what's called nesting. So I'm going to lasso both of these clips here. I'm going to right click on them and I'm going to go to nest. All right. Click on that and it asks me to name this nest, which I'm going to call this needle nest 1. Okay. Click OK. And you can see it combines both of them into one thing. Now what I want to do is do a nice transition between these two. But you can see, as indicated at the clip boundaries here, by this little triangle, that I don't have any handles on the end of this. So if I do a transition here, it's going to pull entirely from this clip. And I don't want it to do that. I'd rather have the transition span between the cut points here. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to move this up one level and move it over to accommodate a transition that will involve both of these elements at the same time. Right click, place my default transition, and I have to be careful here to make sure that the transition does not cross over where there is nothing underneath from the original element that it was transitioning with. If I don't do that, I will get this odd looking cut to the other background where Ed is underneath at the very end of the transition. You see this happen all the time. Let's play through and watch that.
Needles to reduce pain.
Ouch. It's funky, right? So I can fix this by changing the length of the transition, or I can just drag the clip over a little bit so that the transition lines up with the edge here. Now you won't see that.
The needles to reduce pain.
Nice, okay? But the other thing that I've done now is I've changed the timing at the end, and I wanted it to come back right when he says, make you feel better overall, right?
Improve your immune system to make you feel.
And it doesn't anymore. It needs to extend right here. But I don't have any handles. I don't have the ability to extend this clip beyond this point, okay? So the trick is to get inside the nest by double clicking and extending the clips that make up the nest. Okay, so I double click and you can see here are my original clips that make up that nest. And you can see the keyframes for the movement are in here and everything. So I can make these clips longer and thereby give myself some handles in the exterior nest. So I'll drag these out. A little further here, go back to the original sequence, and you can see now I have my handles. Great. So let's play through again.
Your immune system to make you feel better.
So that's great, but you can see now at the end of the clip, the still image stops moving.
And improve your immune system to.
Right there. Movement, and then it ceases. That's because the keyframes are now no longer at the end of the clip. So what I'm going to do is drag this keyframe to the end so that the movement continues throughout the clip, go back to the original sequence, and we should see that reflected there.
The needles to reduce pain, increase blood circulation, and improve your immune system to make you feel better overall.
All right, fluid movement through the entire length of the clip. Great. And I think I'm going to stick with a cut back to Ed here because I like the way that looks.
Make you feel better.
It places a little more emphasis on what he says, make you feel better overall. I'm going to place another transition between our acupuncture definition and our laterally moving acupuncture needles here. So I'm going to select the transition and use Shift D to apply the default, which is a cross dissolve, and check that.
Use needles, which does not.
Oops, we have a movement problem again. Okay, you can see the original definition stops moving, and then we see the acupuncture needles not moving and then start to move. Check it out.
We use needles, which does not.
Kind of funky. All right, so to fix that, we just need to adjust keyframes. So on the first image, you can see, because I've added a dissolve here, the keyframes are no longer at the very end of the used portion of the clip because adding a dissolve extends the clip to the end of the dissolve here. So I'm going to lasso both of these keyframes and move them over to the end. And I'm going to do the same thing for the incoming clip here with the needles. So I'm going to take this keyframe and drag it over to the beginning where the dissolve first starts. Now play through and check the movement.
We use needles, which does not.
Fluid and smooth the whole time. Great. Okay, so now let's play through the entire little sequence here in this soundbite?
Simply, acupuncture is a natural method which we use needles, which does not contain any chemicals, and we use the needles to reduce pain, increase blood circulation, and improve your immune system to make you feel better overall.
Awesome. I really like it. Works very well. Okay, so that is covering soundbite cut points to eliminate jump cuts by using still images that are manipulated in several different ways. We have Gaussian blur to simulate a camera focus pull here. We've got movement, both scale and position, to simulate a camera push with a slight pan. We've got just position here to simulate just a camera pan. And then we've got a still image flying away from us here to simulate a camera pull, with the still image itself used as a nice soft blurred background using, again, our good friend Gaussian blur. All right, my friends, that about does it for video lesson number 7. I'll see you again for video lesson number 8.